Hello. There's been a lot going around on Twitter recently, and so Pete here has pulled together some of the finest minds in UK esports. I don't know why me and Tim are here, to be honest, but we're just here for the ride. And we're just gonna have a chat about the sort of sustainability, about where we're at with orgs, that sort of thing, and pull things together. I don't know whether you want to start by bringing up the tweet that sort of kicked this off. Might be a way to start. Daffod's had a tweet. If we bring that one up. Over the last 2 years, I've seen UKCS grow in lots of ways. This year has been hard to watch at points. Drama on the timeline, rosters imploding, orgs going under. It's tough to see, but at least we've got a lot of volunteers to cover it. So I don't know if one of you guys wants to pick up on that one. What do we think?
Who's going first, boys?
No one.
This is the problem with the UKC.
Yeah.
No one wants to
Here we go.
first.
Yeah.
No one wants to go first.
I could go first because I might have to shoot early. But
Go for it.
yeah, I guess from our side, from a Welsh side, I can see where Davis kind of coming from. Like in the last few years, in the last sort of year, we've seen sort of it grow, and then in the last year, we've seen it sort of dip, and loads of sort of rosters and teams, not just CS, having difficulty with the esports side of things, and then orgs going under. And yeah, I think it's from a number of things, but I think it's the scene is sort of managing the sort of expectations. We had a massive boom coming out of COVID, and then it's coming back from that. And then what we need is that support. So we've kind of, in COVID, we kind of had a shoot to be like, let's say like Premier League football, and now we're bringing it all back to like Championship or sort of level, League Two football, where even in the sort of that scene of that football scene, there's loads of volunteers that need for that to run, and it's exactly the same in the sort of the grassroots and the esports sort of scene. We need those volunteers to keep the scene developing and keep it growing, and yeah, I think because of that shift, we've just had a massive sort of shift of expectations, and that's changed over the last sort of year, I think.
I think we had the same after G20 Elite Series. So if you knew the G20 Elite Series at the time, you had to. It was great for UKCS in terms of the orgs got a stipend from the TO, and it's great for the players because there was like a minimum salary that you had to pay the players as well. So I think at the time it was something like £500 a month minimum that you had to be if you were a Counter-Strike team in G20 Elite Series. So 8 teams in the UK. Well, I think not all of them were UK teams, but eight teams getting paid at least a salary in a kind of like league, and there's some stipend behind that. That's great. The issue is once that goes away, because G20 was a shit show. Once that goes away, everyone still expects that salary, but there's no money coming into it. So that was why that happened initially. And I think currently you've got the whole. I think the issue is. I think there's two issues in my ears. Is kind of for what it's worth. I agree with Daffy's tweet. It's not against Daffy, is it? But I think there's two issues. From an org standpoint, I kind of feel like some orgs get into it for the wrong reasons. And then from a player standpoint, I feel like they think they're overvalued in some ways. So you kind of have, which might sound harsh, but if you think about Counter-Strike, how many teams can actually make a living from it? It's not that many. There's probably the top kind of, I'd say top kind of 60 or 70, maybe 80 teams could be salaried in Counter-Strike in the world. And then you relate that to what UKCS is, and it can be difficult. And I think, how do you monetize a team which is 150 in the world for Counter-Strike? You just can't.
Yeah.
And that's the issue. So it's a lot from the org side of things. They've got all the risk. If you're picking up a team which is 150 to 200, from the player side of things, they need the salary to live and to actually grind. So how do you meet in the middle is kind of what I wanted to discuss about, because I think essentially that. But
I suppose if we go from that and then throw it over to like a player's perspective, like Bev, like coming from the player side of things, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's a personal attack from Pete because we are 151st.
That was a random number.
No, but I understand that a lot. We're in an unfortunate position, I think, simply because of the country we're in. I don't want to bang about the cost of living, but we're not at the privilege of the CIS countries where £300-400 a month is a normal salary. Even if we take the 500 a month, 800 a month, it's you can make more in a weekend working at McDonald's.
Yep.
Like it's not sustainable. Like great for players because you're constantly worrying about the financial side of things. And you got to be pretty privileged, I think, to chase the professional route past a certain age. You need to be able to be either you have a very supporting family, or you need to come from like quite a wealthy background anyway. And that's like the 1%. So that's why we've been
I said the
seeing so
exact
many
same
good
thing.
players.
Yeah,
We've seen
yeah.
so many good players leave the scene the last few years because it's you can't live this way forever on £500 a month.
Fully
But from the
agree.
org side, yeah, I'm not too sure on the incomes and outcomes of that. But yeah, it's definitely a risk for both ends. I would say more so on the players. But yeah.
I fully agree with that, and I think yeah, it's almost like that kind of does that model of the American sports models that work where you can play throughout college and university, and if you're not good enough past that, your career's over in any sport in America because there's no sporting clubs basically after school, and you have obviously the support through the kind of scholarships and stuff going through, and like that actually could work in esports in the UK. But to your point about the CIS scene and 300-400 a month, I agree with that. But also, if you look at how many orgs have salaried in Russia or Ukraine, it's because betting sponsors are so easy to come by in those countries compared to the regulations you have in the UK. It's impossible to get a betting sponsor unless you want a casino crypto sponsor, which we've said no to a million of them. But it's because they're not regulated in the UK. Like we can't just take a casino betting sponsor on UKCS because our player base is from the UK, and it's not regulated to do that unless you want to do dodgy things. But
yeah, just to chime in on that, actually, I think that's an important tangent we should go down. I think a lot of these teams and organizations that end up either having to leave the scene like temporarily with or entirely because they took a bad sponsor and now they can't pay their team or what have you, or they've run out of money. I think we've seen this happen a few times now with like teams that are sort of below endpoint trying to take a risk and like actually pay a roster what they probably should be paid, and that's admirable, but they do so by basically managing themselves very poorly, in my opinion. I've been a victim of it. I'm not going to name names, but fortunately, we're not in this situation at the minute, our roster. But this is sort of been cyclical in the scene, and I feel like a lot of the times the players and people who are involved in the scene get blamed for this when it's completely nothing to do with them. It's just the mismanagement of an organization. Now, I know there's a few organization people here that may take grievance with what I've just said, but I'm not trying to say that their job is easy or that it's simply easy enough to remedy the situation. But I feel like a lot of the time I see on the timeline people dragging the players down and the coaches and the play and all this sort of stuff, and the teams that are actually trying and making sacrifices based on things that are entirely out of their control. To be perfectly honest. And I don't think it's very fair, and I think it's very negative, and I think it's very typical of the scene. And I thought we'd move past stuff like this, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the negativity in general that comes out from a lot of people from all sides around all subjects is something that holds us back greatly and stops us from having proper discussions like this about how we can move forwards. I think the general reaction to a lot of what was said last night from everybody is a great example of that as well. Because I do think you've got a very good point there. A lot of, the orgs having to pull out and all that stuff, that's on the orgs themselves for making poor decisions and not thinking through what they're doing properly, not the players by any means. And anybody who tries to blame that on the players is a bit short-sighted. But then, once again, they just end up spreading that negativity, and it doesn't help anybody. So...
Yeah, I think sorry to jump in there. I think again that kind of comes into managing those expectations and giving people that sort of clear idea of the scene. I think from like an org point of view, I think some of that is a bit of inexperience. People go in and they see people running orgs and think like the back end, that's an easy job, and they go, yeah, we can do it. We can take a roster and do that, and then and we'll bring in that sponsorship because we've got a top level team or we got some of the top level players, but it's very difficult to get that sponsor, as probably Pete and some others here would know, that bringing in that money is constant and then getting it, and you might have it for a year, but that doesn't guarantee you're going to get it next year. And unless you're doing that social media, which takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, let you do all the other avenues. You've got to be hitting all those as well as managing the team and keeping the players to sort of do that. So it's that expectation as well from the players, from the fans, that help support you so you can bring in that sponsorship the next time. Because as soon as that starts changing, that is going to impact sort of moving forward and just sort of diminish it and then change the expectations again, because the players are coming in and say, we're expecting this salary. And if you're inexperienced in running a team, knowing that you'll just go, yeah, okay, we're paying you that salary because that's what you expected. And that then puts you in this position where if the next round of sponsorship doesn't come in, you haven't got much choice. And it's you're in a situation where you either close your org and let a roster go, or you sort of end up not paying bills.
Yeah, I fully agree with that, and I think it's I think that this is why I kind of wanted to talk about the contract side a little bit, because I mean, Biscuit and Beve, I guess it'd be great to get your thoughts on this, and Reese actually, because I can't see the cameras over, and Reese as well. In terms of when you go to an organisation and what you ask for, okay, I'm not going to say tell us what you ask for, but let's just say you have that cost, and then you can think about the budget that a business has got to spend for a year to do that. And then we've got to take a look about where's the value in return for that, because at the end of the day, those things need to match up. Otherwise, it's just a passion project. And look, I mean, we started Endpoint as a passion project almost as well. It wasn't like we started it as a, trying to make loads of money out of it, and we still haven't. To this day, not people won't believe it, but I've not made a penny from Endpoint. People won't believe that, but I'm not in it for the money. And I think that's the issue of some people will think they can make a quick buck in it, and it's just not the thing. You have to do it because you like doing it. And so right, let's just say, for an example, you were looking for £500 a month. That's what you need to survive, which is a really small amount. But let's just say you have a supportive family behind that, because you don't have to pay rent, and you can just live in your family home for £500 a month, because at the end of the day, that's going to be what it needs to be. Times 5, maybe 6 with a coach, it's £3,000 a month. The odd LAN here and there, the odds, travel budget, boot camp, whatever it is, you may be looking at 40 to 50 grand as a budget for a team for a year. Easily. In tier, you're probably looking at the right. So we got two UK salaried teams right now. I'm guessing Endpoint and Verdant probably.
Yeah,
and then you need a kind of third, fourth, fifth, sixth. How do you get those teams to start getting a small salary which is sustainable? So it doesn't have to be 500. It can start from 100. Like we, even when we did an academy team, we paid a small amount of salary as a token just to kind of start that process and how it looks. So how do you justify that 50 grand a year that you've got to spend on that on let's say EXO, who are the next team that should get a salary? How do you justify 50 grand a year? And I think you look at kind of what prize money, how much prize money do you expect to get for a year? Maybe. One of the main issues as well is, right, so let's say EXO, let's say you got picked up by an org, and then you start doing really well. They're paying you a salary, you start doing really well. You have the standard 80% cut to you in prize money. How does the org actually benefit from you doing well? We've had this issue with Endpoint in a lot of our contracts in the past, where we all, even when we won, the regionals in Rocket League, for example, we won a regional, which is fucking massive. It's like the best thing you can do in Europe in Rocket League. But actually, we end up paying more out because our team did well, and we didn't realize any gain until, we didn't realize any gain at the time, because it's not that easy just to pick a sponsor up because of it. And because our team got so good, our contracts run out and we lose into a bigger org. So then we can't get the sponsor because we haven't got the team anymore that's good. So at that point of winning that event, the org and the players need to benefit for it. The players will benefit for it because they'll go to a bigger org potentially and get a bigger salary, or they'll win some prize money or whatever it is. So how does the org benefit at that time as well? And I think that's the conversation that needs to work. It needs to be more mutually beneficial for when success. We want to give our team everything we can, boot camps, everything. So when we succeed and they succeed, it's mutually beneficial.
I would just say on that, Pete, you're sort of referencing the Rocket League success that you guys had. Sometimes when you have success, the value isn't immediately realized. You guys have established a reputation now in Rocket League for being very good and having good players and having a good approach to the scene. Because of that, and still maintain a top level in the scene. I'm guessing I don't follow Rocket League, but like I often have heard you say stuff like this, and I feel like it's somewhat unfair to like put it on the players to like.
I'm not putting it on the players. I'm not putting it on players.
Okay.
Like, there's a lot of org owners that need management 101 lessons and how to.
Because I was just
run
going to
an
say
organisation.
many of the things you just said, I would say, you know, that's on the org to figure out. That's all of that's on the org to figure out and do. Like if they're not gonna do that, then they're going to be one of these organizations that falls prey to, you know, downfalls. And I would say you're an organization that has come up against these problems and has survived, and therefore, you know, sort of Darwin's sort of philosophy here at play. Like you survived the test, and now you get to stay. But there are many people that don't get past the filter. I think
how many organizations can go through what Endpoint did? We for 3 years in a row, me and Adam put money in every single month for 3 years because we had other jobs doing it. I was playing poker, Adam was software development, and we did part-time at Endpoint until we get to a break-even standpoint. How many orgs can do that and actually put? So we were putting in, I don't know how much a month, but let's say as a total 5-6 grand a month in to make sure we paid like budgets and had the best team in the UK at the time. You know, out of our money without getting the return. How many people can do that as a passion? They have to do it as a passion project because it's a stupid fucking business idea if you do it as a business idea.
Yeah, listen, I agree with what you're saying, but what I'm hearing is actually parallels with the player's journey. To be perfectly honest,
100%.
So yeah, but this is what I'm trying to say. The players and the organizations have actually traveled similar paths here. There's very similar parallels that are happening. I just think like what you're trying to do is not maybe a characterization was wrong. It's just paint the picture of like how the challenges organizations face, and that's entirely fine. I think that's all. They're all valid points, but I would just in case anyone was of the notion that I was that disabuse that notion that like that's not on the players. The players their entire value is, are they successful? Are they winning? You know, or
I disagree with that.
Completely disagree. Completely.
Yeah, I disagree. As a player,
I haven't
you
finished. May I finish? Or they have incredible, you know, influence on social media, or they're making content, or what have you, and they're valuable in this sense. That was, if I was just allowed to finish. So yes, they're either very, very successful, or they're a combination of both, or they're one or the other, right? Those are the ways organizations can utilize and recognize the value in their players. Now, if the players do not have that, then you probably shouldn't have those players. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, but at the same time, the way I'd phrase it is that as a player, you're not getting paid to play the game. Your job is not to play. Your job, what you're getting paid to do, is be a billboard. You're paid to represent an organization. That's what it is. That is the bottom line of your job role as a player. Now, yes, obviously, from a player's point of view, you've got. I completely agree with what Bev said earlier, and that if you want to go full time, you have to have that support. And for a lot of people, they need that money to live. So at the end of the day, the players have that responsibility to themselves to try and get that salary. But on the other side of things, as an organisation, it's like, well, where's that money going to come from, and in what way are you worth that salary? And you're quite right in the. I do agree in the sense of, as a player, yeah, you've got to be able to succeed. You've got to be able to have a good branding and that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, what are those for? The whole point of those is so that you get more viewers. That's literally the bottom line. It's so that more people watch you, more people see you, and therefore people are going to pay you to show off brands, other brands that are sponsored.
I'd actually, basically, can you name, other than Smooya in the UK, who's got a big enough brand to even justify £500 a month, to where an actual marketing person would spend £500 a month to get some tweets or Twitch or YouTube out them in the UK?
Any UK player?
Any UK player, maybe not Thomas as well, but any other UK player.
Okay, so I can't say Thomas or Smooya.
Even Thomas probably hasn't got the big enough reach, I'll be honest. He might have just about, like, in terms of actually a sponsor would pay for them to do tweets that much every month.
Like, yeah, I don't think I'd have any problem saying Thomas or Smooya. I agree with that. I think like, if you go even higher, like obviously there's Mazzy's paying in tier 1, but
okay, yeah, but they've got salaries, yeah. So name one player outside of tier 1, yeah.
Outside it, well, that's quite hard. That's for any scene, though. Do you know what I mean? That this is another thing. This is another thing we need to realize as well. Like a lot of the problems we discuss are not endemic only to the UK scene. This is something going on everywhere, but we're part of this scene. We think about this scene quite a lot, so therefore, you know, we think it's just happening to us. Okay, So I would just like everyone to remember that and keep that in mind. That like, oh, it looks like it looks like Rome is burning and we're the only place burning, but actually, everywhere's burning. Get the buckets.
100%.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So that leads on to kind of like, how do you actually grow a scene where they can have it? Currently, you've got in esports or in business in general, you have that kind of line which goes across like this, and then all of a sudden it just goes like spikes up. So you have the top people making loads, and you have the people that are, trying to make it or making nothing, and you want to obviously have that kind of, as straight a line as possible up to the top.
Yeah, I mean that's like the romantic idea, isn't it? That sort of comes from like and that's very UK as well, because we have like the English football pyramid, and everyone sort of follows the football, and that's sort of how it works. It sort of trickles down. Best are paid a lot, but there's people being paid all the way through, and there's a very sustainable sort of path to pro, and like it's very healthy, right? But that's contingent on a very high participation rate from like fans and people watching the sport, right? Like not just in the country in the stadiums, but also at home on TV. People in the country, very high participation rate. We don't have that in the UK. Other countries have this. We do not have this. So go ahead if you want to say.
Yeah, if I could jump in there. So that's pretty much what we're trying to do in Wales. So that is the sort of structure which we're putting in place in the sort of fully all the way through in regards to I think there's 13 clubs now registered to Esports Wales, and then in the Welsh Esports League, like the top, I think it is up to 13 gets some sort of prize pool on the positioning. So any club that plays will get money back. Okay, it's not a lot. Like the players will get 20 quid or 30 quid back, which isn't thing, but that's the grassroots. But as you said, around it is how do we get more support, and that's probably the issue, is the getting the more player base in, the more people, the more viewership, because at the moment we don't get the sponsorship to cover the prize pool as such. We sort of, as Esports Wales, we make the money, which allows us the money we make then to put on to run in the league, and the prize pool from that side. But there is a possible of having that sort of structure. It wouldn't be great because the teams at the top is the issue. Then they're not getting the money again, which they want, because that trickles all the way down. And I've had those complaints as well. Is as soon as you start trickling that money down to get that pyramid, is the sort of teams at the top start complaining because they want to get that money as such. They say, well, we won in the tournament, we should be winning, not sort of getting paid for finishing 5th and 6th or 7th in a tournament.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think I pushed for a really long time when ESL UK was around for ESL Prem to. There was this thing about our 20k prize money per EPS season and all those other things, and I was really pushing for a long time to get that down to 10,000 prize money over 3 series. But you spent that 30 grand a year over three events extra to do a stipend for orgs to be in it, and they promote the event, they promote the sponsors of the event, all this kind of side things. I would love to do that at UKCS if we get a sponsor on board that could actually, our prize pools are much smaller than that. Instead of, UKCS prize pools, what we got, I think 2.5k or something per season for Div 1, I think it is. I can't remember.
I think it might be more than that. I think we got 2k for first place alone. If I'm not 2k USD, I might be wrong there, but
I can't remember. Anyway,
I'm not too sure.
But let's say we manage per season to get another sponsor, which would go, okay, let's bring that up to 5k. Would you rather should that extra 2.5k go to per season go to prize money, or should it go to a stipend for the top 5-6 teams or 5-6 orgs who promote the league and grow a sustainable thing there, and then you can maybe start paying small salaries back to players, and there's that kind of that's kind of what I was trying to push for a long time, and we were literally getting it signed off before ESL UK got closed down. But yeah,
that's unfortunate.
Hello, I'm here.
Hello.
Wow.
Hello.
Yeah, it's a shame, really. I think the stipend for Prem would have been really big, and it would bring out that whole thing of working to build something together, because at the moment it's kind of like the Wild West. Everybody is out doing their own thing. Whereas if you have, these set media deliverables that these orgs have to do in terms for money, that gets them promoting the event a lot more to their audiences, and the event as a whole grows, and everybody benefits from growth of your biggest event. I think one drawback of the stipend, though, is that I think a lot of organisations maybe wouldn't use it properly. Obviously, a great deal of the stipends should be going towards the players, and that should be in the contract. But I think anything left over, brands should utilize that to help build better revenue streams for themselves or help build out their marketing vehicle. And that's something that a lot of the lower down amateur organizations, even us at the start, fall victim to, is when they get money, they just spend it without thinking about what they're spending it on, and they don't think about building their brand and building their marketing vehicle so they can bring in better sponsors or building revenue streams. They just go, okay, what's the best team we can buy? And then a year later, they have no money and they have no way of making any more money.
The stipend shouldn't go to the players as direct thing. That's the whole point. Is as in we need to build something which kind of where an organization can get revenue as like a standard thing, but then the players can also get a set salary which they know they can live off for the next however long. Because like Beve, Reese, like what's your, let's say you need 500 quid a month, just say, to go full time or whatever it is, small amount, but what would your goal with that be? Is it going to be, realistically, is it going to be to stick with that organization forever? So how unlikely is that? It's going to be, how do I get to actually be able to do it full time with 2K a month or 3K or 5K or 10K, and do you need to be super beneficial in that first like stepping stone to get to the next one, and unfortunately you look at the Israeli scene, we picked up some really good players there, but they don't really have any good teams as a whole, but they've got some unbelievable talent,
like zero good teams.
So that's kind of that's my point, is unfortunately it's not going to be the teams that really get to the next, like we have Verdant, EXO going down, and I think the reason is, are those teams actually going to be the teams that are in the top 50 HLTV? It's unlikely. It's likely they get picked apart before they get there by bigger orgs. That's just the way it is. We have the same. Max can testify, I'm sure. We get to that top 30 and we get picked apart. But
isn't that why you introduced like the legacy contracts and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's working with the player to do that.
Do you want to maybe explain a little bit about what that is, just for people who aren't familiar with it, the legacy contract stuff?
Yeah, so if you're with Endpoint for longer than 2 years, you become a legacy member in your contracts. If one of our players gets sold, we give 25% of all proceeds to the legacy members, split across. Just so as a kind of like, it's unfortunate you got to start again, but at least you get paid for it.
It's almost like a parachute payment from like relegation into the championship or something like this.
And that's working with the players instead of like the org going, well, we don't want to sell players, we want to get to major, but we have also fair contracts at the same time where there's a set buyout in there, and there's not much we can do about that if that gets hit, or if a player really wants to leave and we look at getting close to that. We don't want to hold a player back at the same time. So it's kind of like, so my question to you, Beve, if you're looking for an org now with EXO, what is your goal with it? Is it to get 500, is it to stay with that org, or is it going to be, let's make a fair contract where, okay, let's take £500 a month, maybe a little bit more if you want to give the prize money, let's say £700 or £800 a month, but you give away 80% of prize money to the org, and there's a fair buyout in there as well, which is, split with it, no, not split the org, but there's a fair buyout on there as well. Maybe, and it's not too long a contract. Like I would always say, don't sign too long contracts if you're not getting paid that much, because it's just stupid. But yeah.
Well, it's weird because from the player's point of view, I think the last 2 or 3 orgs I've joined, we've always wanted to actually sign for longer than what the org have wanted. They've always wanted to do almost like little trial contracts, 3 to 6 months, and we've always said we'd rather be here for the next 12. That way we can actually grow as a team and have that support, and then we can. I think that's like a fair distance, but I think it's more on the org side that prevents us staying any longer.
Does that tie to a sponsorship contract though? Like if they've got a sponsorship contract for 6 months, they'll sign a 6-month agreement.
But they just want to make sure they're not burning money, I think. And the issue is with the reputation in the UK scene. And if you look at any UK team, Biscu's team, my team included, how many roster changes do you see every 6 months? There'll be 1, 2. So you won't have the same team at the end of a 6-month contract anyway than what you probably picked up anyway.
But that's the issue then. Does the contract say that all can actually get rid of the person if they don't stick together? Like, otherwise they've got to then pay bench salaries and all this kind of stuff, and it just adds to the budget.
Yeah. So what we've had in our last 2 contracts is, first of all, the players decide the roster, never the org. And then second of all, once the players are removed from the roster, then they're removed from their payment as well. So then they'll they can either have it terminated if they choose or whatever.
So
but
it's
they won't
like
get benched,
if all the other players agree, then you can terminate the contract essentially.
It's terminate in terms of if you're benching someone, you can terminate, but you can't just terminate the contract willy-nilly as a 5. So I think with EXO, the only reason we're able to terminate is because an agent advised that I put in like a 3-week late payment clause, and that allows you to terminate. So that's the only way we were able to really get out of that situation. But besides that, there's no way for players to terminate on their end.
No, that sounds like a good clause. I mean, you can even put clauses in there if you want stuff like if you get benched, you can terminate. Like that's a fair clause to ask for, I think, as well. You know,
I mean, that is a fairly standard operation. At this level, I've come across, like, especially in our situation, we've had a couple of roster changes since the start of our time with Verdant, and yeah, like if we were to bench someone, that it was very similar to what James explained.
But the org shouldn't be able to bench a player and then get rid of them as well, because that's just against what's the point of the contract then? So
well, that isn't the case. So
yeah, the players decide to bench.
If a player is benched, then they're still under contract and benched if they wish it, but there's no immaterial gain. So it's better to terminate and search for fields anew.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense because you don't. I suppose at this level, with orgs already financially at the point they're at, sitting on a bench waiting for a buyout is pretty unlikely, right?
Can we pivot to another talking point I seen on the timeline, if you don't mind? I just want to briefly touch on this because I seen Adam from EXO, James's IGL, sort of make this point. I couldn't really agree more with it, especially in his case, which he documented well. About sort of in close quotations, experienced players or teams not giving players chances like that are lower down, and I can't help but say that I don't agree. Like, in the strongest possible terms, I couldn't disagree more. I think there's plenty of examples over the last few years where this has been the case, where players lower than another team have been asked to join, have joined a team that was higher, gone on to do things, gone on to be on better teams. There's numerous examples of this. There's numerous examples that Adam explained of him doing the same. I just think it's not. I mean, I just think it's sort of fictitious. Now, if people want to name names and situations of like where they feel like, oh, this player could have been picked up or this player should have been picked up, then please do. But don't just sort of like throw this out there to like tar all, in close quotation marks, experienced players with this sort of brush that we're unwilling to try new players. I mean, or give like the younger guys who haven't necessarily done this or done that a chance. I mean, I don't think it's accurate. I think, you know, without delving into the numerous examples I think it's obvious that that's not the case. I mean,
no, I agree with you there, Kieran. The one difference I will say where it can apply would be to players who've quote unquote retired, players who've stopped like competing, said, look, I'm no longer playing completely, like myself, for example. There are a lot of players who could have gone, well, I still love the game, I might as well just dip down, play with some friends in intermediate or main, and then in the process just happy to stay where I am, but be like a feeder team, as it were. Let younger players learn from me, for example.
But that's unreasonable.
That's I was referencing.
Yeah, I was going to say it's unreasonable.
Rather than the players at your level. At your level, you guys, I think, especially your team, have always taken the opportunity on, you know, rising players. You know, a player that's like a 360 level caliber to come up into advance. I was more so referencing what Timo was saying. You know, when you're done and you know you can't really compete at the top level anymore, you know, why not go and help those people in inters and in main get the experience they need so they can take that jump onto the teams like your own.
So, my dream of making it pro has collapsed. I'm not getting paid, but I should now spend my free time for free.
Well, obviously, only if you want to keep playing. Obviously,
no one's saying that they should. This is like a passion, but
no. But this is the thing. I want to disabuse the people of this notion that there's this sort of expectation or responsibility to do this. Like, if there was many organizations, like for example Endpoint or Into the Breach or Verdant, for example, that had an academy team, then this would make sense because they could pay these people a small amount of money and like they could do these things that you guys imagine. But this is not a reasonable expectation. Like, this doesn't happen anywhere.
It's not level
look
of
at
an
why they're
expectation. We're
retiring.
talking about people like, for example, look at Nem, look at Halal 5. You've got Nem and Dexy, players who have a lot of experience, who've played high levels of main. They've stopped competing properly, but they're still playing in a team now with players like Frosty and Kaz who have never played to a high level before, and saying, look, we're friends, let's just play together. And then Frosty and Kaz are now learning, and say in a scenario where instead of Frosty and Kaz, you've got maybe some younger players even who are wanting to go full time. They've got now a couple of players they can now learn from and grow with and be developed and almost fast track to that level of experience. And I've already seen from pugging with Kaz myself, he's gotten a lot better recently. Again, I don't know whether he's got any intentions or any desires of going pro, but that's the sort of example that I'm talking about.
I think that's
Which I think would be nice to see more, but it's not an expectation.
Like, they don't practice, they don't scrim.
They do.
Like,
they do practice.
They like very, very rarely.
Very rare.
From what we've heard, it's like it's limited.
We're not expecting full time. We're expecting like part time, just like any other Inters or Open team would be.
Yeah, I wasn't at all trying to say that the top teams at your guys' level don't take the chances, because they do. The gap is at the Inters and main level, where the younger, like the very fresh players, are not getting the opportunity to learn how to play Team CS properly, because there's nobody there to teach them. Because the people who have had their day, and they still continue to play. Obviously, if you don't want to play, you don't want to play. I'm not saying come and do it if you don't want to play the game. But, they don't come down and teach them. And that's where the kind of void in talent development has derived from. And that's why I set up our academy project as well. I managed to get who I think obviously is a good idea to come down and teach some less experienced players.
Do you think anyone
would be the same as sorry, go ahead, James.
I was going to say, do you think anyone that's recently retired or left the game besides Docs is actually capable of teaching young players how to play CS in a proper way?
Specifically Docs, yeah. I think
but without him, I can't. I'm struggling to think of one. I like what Dex and them are doing, and they can teach them definitely little things about it. But I mean, I've teamed with Dexy and I've played a lot with Nem, and the difference between them and like these younger players is genuinely just a bit more experience, and they're mechanically much better.
What do you think about I just saw Hanno in the chat saying UKCS is the real UKCS, and I mentioned earlier about the American system. So how do you get someone who's actually experienced to be able to actually get paid to do it, to teach these younger people coming through, because they're obviously older and need the money? Why not have some of these unis that specialize in certain games, not just Counter-Strike, other games, but let's say you have a university of, I don't know, Chichester, who says, I want to specialize in Counter-Strike. I'll hire a lecturer who talks about esports and the world of esports, because they've been through it for the last how many years, but they also, someone like Adam, who is really experienced, maybe, and can actually teach CS as well at the same time, and teach young people who they give these kind of 18, 19-year-olds these scholarships to go to university, or they pay for it as well if they want to actually go for it and go through university and get an education, but or subsidize or whatever it is, and maybe they actually start teaching them through university, and it's the whole American system of sports, which again I think could work in esports somehow.
It's what Denmark does, right?
Yeah, it is.
Well, like that's happened in the UK, no? Like Alan Hender started at Warwick, and like that's where his coaching career started, wasn't it? Like he coached Warwick Uni, and then I remember speaking to Emperor about it, and he offered like Reading help, but they turned him down.
I would just say on the university point, like obviously the collegiate, the strength of the collegiate scene and its growth is a great thing for the scene and for any scene that sort of invests in it. But not everybody goes to university, guys.
Not at all, no. But you might do if it was a career for esports, is what I'm saying. But I think it was a career to actually be a professional player, and you had the teacher, and you learned at the same time. So if your CS career fails, because 99.9% of people do, you've actually got a degree to go on afterwards as well.
That's all fantastic. But like, what are my grades? What are my A levels? I mean, like these sorts of things. Like many players in my experience, not a vast majority, but many players in my experience who do this game for very many years, especially in their young teenage years, don't tend to have glimmering academic records.
Basically, I got CDE and I went to university. Like in my levels.
I also had very bad A levels, and granted to get into uni, then dropped out. But what I'm trying to say is many people don't go to university for whatever reason. Okay, so I think that we can all say here we need to get behind this, but it's only going to capture a small amount of players, and we've actually yet to see, in my opinion, any players come from this that have actually gone on to do anything of remotely
because it's not set up. It's not set up right now. If you look at Davenport Esports, look at Davenport University or something in America. That's what I'm talking about.
Maybe not a great example.
Oh, they've been blowing up every 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean the original one that did well. I mean,
well, they did well, but it was also like I spoke to one of their players recently in an interview, and like it was pretty bad. Like there was loads of promises that weren't kept, and I think the theme in Davenport was the exact same thing in esports of like people overpromising and not selling things correctly, and like the same with sponsors. Like people get sold things that just aren't real, and that's exactly what happened at Davenport.
Yeah, Eden, I completely agree that esports courses are not about playing. I have massive issues with esports courses. I'm not saying that. Esports courses need to be more niche in the industry they actually want to go into. They should focus on something instead of being so broad. But
Tim, didn't you do a good one?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was esports management, and it was literally a business degree. So I did marketing, I did finance, I did team and HR management, that sort of stuff. But half of my modules, I was able to use esports case studies, basically. But unfortunately, that course no longer exists.
Richard Lewis teaches an esports course, but it's not esports. It's kind of similar to Tim's. Like he's a remote professor in America, and he does like it's revolved around match fixing and like fair play in esports and sports. And I think that's like a pretty cool science like he does, whereas like it involves esports, but it's not necessarily like an esports degree.
Yeah, that's New Haven in the US. But again, that's the US where they have that sort of slightly better sporting, what's the word? Like adoption.
Culture,
or
like the way sports is integrated to academia. But I think that's what we need here. And just to, carry on from Biscuit's point, I do agree that maybe running everything for uni could end up gatekeeping people. It's always been one of my concerns, because I would have never been able to go to uni, for example, if I wanted to go play. But at the same time, I think if you set up properly, and I do mean like proper American, football scholarship system where you give people who wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to go to university and they get to play collegiate esports and get a degree, I think that will actually motivate more people from esports to go and get that degree. So like Pete said, they have that fallback option if it doesn't work, but then they also get, the professional training or the professional environment to develop in as a player. So I do think, a proper, this is one of the few cases where a proper American model would work here. It's just never been implemented properly, and that's why I've never seen anybody come out from it.
With universities, there's a lot of the people who work for universities who would be in charge of or be the people responsible for setting that up are either out of touch with esports or the opposite end. They're out of touch with, hence why there's the controversies with a lot of esports courses. They're out of touch with what's actual useful in terms of education, what transferable skills are there.
Yeah. I think in UKCS as well, like if we're specifically looking at the Counter-Strike portion of it, there's this massive divide between UniCS and actual UKCS, and there's no like real overlap, it feels like. And that's something at UKCS we've been trying to like amend, and I know we're not going to fix the problem, something like that, but I see this, and when I speak to Finn, there's this like whole community in UCS of like good players, and like there's this whole different world in the UK, and it never interacts with like actual UKCS. And I think there's definitely a part where if we could bridge that gap, I think that would create just so much more opportunity for the scene as a whole.
That's what we're trying to do at UKC as well, where you get the path through the varsity into the promotions into the main league. But it's difficult, because people want to play both, or they'll been doing their own teams aim, and it's difficult. But
it probably also doesn't help that then with like university leagues, like if you're just a regular CS team in the UK, you can pick somebody from like anywhere in the UK, whereas if you're a uni team, you're sort of relying on having a decent portion of, or a decent pool of players to be able to pull from to construct and build that team.
Yeah, I had the same issue when I started uni at BCU. That I remember there was like, I think I'd just joined Coalesce at that time, and I remember getting messaged by one guy who's on the team like, "Oh, do you want to join the team?" I'm like, "No, I literally don't have enough time to even do any of my like coursework or anything whilst I'm playing and competing, let alone doing uni CS as well."
But I don't think the expectation is for like a full team to come out and succeed. I think it's for now just like individuals, just like have someone come through the system and just at least create a bridge. And like, who was it? Like Hanno put in the chat there, like there's actually a bridge for the first time being made. Like my expectation isn't that 50 players are going to appear from that, but like at least one or two, or just like create some sort of network so it interlocks. I think right now it's just two scenes that don't interact that are both in the UK.
I think we've seen some bridges though, like some players brought over from UKCS. If you look at the, I forget what they're called, but the team that had Kai Synergy in it, that they started off in UKCS.
Yeah, that's a
then
great example.
then came over to Epic. I think they finished third or fourth. Won Epic.
Yeah, top 4.
Kai Synergy stood in with K10 at UKIC finals, which they lost. Yeah, no, they did really well.
That's a good example.
Who did they lose that to?
Slips my mind. I'm not sure. I think Thomas Otting was involved. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think some sort of proper homologation between the two scenes is definitely needed, but it's something that's going to take a long time to properly set up.
Yeah.
I do think what UKC is doing is really good in getting these players a bit more involved with, I guess, what we would call the traditional UK scene. But if I'm being honest, I can't think of a way off the top of my head, but I'll go around integrating them better. But I do think bringing them closer together is definitely the way forward, especially if the UK finally starts taking esports a bit more seriously at the government level, and we can start introducing, proper esports path to grow, proper esports.
I think the other thing, with the education side though, is that if you look at an esports organization, if they wanted to go down the education route, you can actually get grants and stuff from the government. So in terms of like, if Endpoint wants to do a college course or something here, and we linked up with maybe Sheffield United or something, got a community college to offer that, we can get every student they get at Sheffield United Community College, they get like $4,000 or something per student. And it's a kind of thing where you can share it with an education provider, and then you can actually get money for that, and you could start actually building these academies that way. The problem with the obviously college side is that it's 16, 17, 18-year-olds, which they'd be regional locked, or they'd have to move potentially to local areas. But education side actually has a monetization route where you could actually, train up players. The academy system in general, if you've got a main team as well, doesn't work in CS in my opinion. Like Endpoint wouldn't work having an academy model, because you'd want that team to get too close to the main team, unless you have a team that's in the top 20 or something in the world. But yeah,
it is very difficult. I do think a lot of organizations haven't fully explored the educational route properly. I think they look down on it because of the issues with esports courses in university as they are right now. I do think that's one of the issues as well. I mean, it's one of the reasons why we haven't done it as well, because I very much don't like a lot of the esports courses that are around. So
yeah,
I think there needs to be a change on a lot of fronts for things to start happening properly, and it's going to take a lot of time for those changes to happen. And
obviously, like the stuff with the unis and the education stuff and all those stipends come, like we're talking like really high level stuff here, right? Like this is like government, like major government policy that's got to change. If like we bring it down a little bit and we sort of think maybe a little bit more short term, in like your guys' opinions, like what could both players, organizations, and sort of just even like punters start doing, sort of, like say this year or in the short term to actually try and push a bit.
This
more
was going to be my question for benefit. Ethan, and sorry to put you on the spot here, but if K10, who are one of the organisations in the UK that have supported UKCS, for you to get back into UKCS with a team, right? Let's say you were wanted to pick up Beve's team or Reese's team, or I know Reese has got TLR actually, but what would you need in a contract to go, yes, I'll pick them up? Let's say the salary was £500 a month, so you had a budget of £3,000 a month or something for the team. What would you need that contract to stay for you to say, right, I'll pick that team up now?
I think we need to have a very in-depth discussion with them about what their goals are as a team, the kind of things they're open to in terms of sponsorships and activations, doing content and stuff like that. And I would love to be able to have a proper talk with them about prize pool distribution. Obviously, in our previous contracts, our prize pool distribution is very player heavy, very favorite towards the players, as I think most contracts are. And this was because they made the argument to us that prize pool, if they're succeeding, makes up a vast amount more of their income than the salaries that we're going to pay them. But I think that we need to be able to flip that on the head and be like, well, if you give us more of the prize money, then we can give you more of the salary, and it also gives us more of the funding to do extras that are going to help you out, like boot camps and stuff like that. So I do think prize money is definitely one of the big points that we need to have a conversation about as an industry as a whole, not just within UK esports. And I think there just needs to be a better mutual understanding of what we all want to get out of this. I think a lot of the times organizations and their teams are very misaligned on what they want on all fronts, financially, from a content perspective, from a marketing perspective as well. I think we would all just need to get down and talk about it properly. I think it's something we've always been quite successful at. We've always had teams that kind of see what we're trying to do. In terms of specific contract clauses, I definitely think prize pool is the biggest one. I think marketing deliverables is another big one as well. I'll have to think about a couple of others because we're still quite aware of coming back into the scene, if I'm being honest.
So question to Reese, Bevy, and Bisco: are you attached to prize pool or not?
So let's give this one to Reese.
Yeah,
he
well,
deserves.
I just been sitting, I'm chilling, but I don't know. I think what you said, like, as well, it comes down to the player actually understanding what he's getting into as well with an org. But like for me personally, like I've never obviously been at the level Beve and Biscu are playing at or been on massive salary or ever have really. Like TLR's the first team, they're paying us a tiny bit, not a lot, but like you said, it's a way to get involved and like into playing a bit more and taking it a bit more seriously. But I think it's also just like a player understanding what they need to give to an organization as well as what the organization needs to give to the player.
Yeah.
And with like Chef, like I had that conversation because there was some things I didn't agree with and some things I did, and we talked it out and like understood it. I mean, it's what I've tweeted out a few times. It's like main word is like I think UK players are quite like some lower end ones are quite immature with how they see stuff. Like they've never had, I don't know, the space to feel. They always think they deserve more for some reason, and that's just a general thing. I think in most sports in the UK, that's just how UK people are. But yeah, I don't know. For me, like I've never had a problem with an org, like because I always talk, and maybe it's because I come from my marketing background myself, so I kind of understand what people actually have to do as a player. But yeah, I'm at the lower end of these two, so they probably have a bit more insight on actual contract negotiations.
I do agree with you though. There needs to be that mutual understanding. You know, I need to understand what my players want from me, and my players need to understand what I want from them. I think that is a failure that is, you know, it comes from both sides. Both sides never really try to understand each other very well. Again, it's something that we've tried really hard to do properly, and for the most part succeeded, but sometimes haven't. So
I think some orgs try and splash way too much money as well when they think they have something coming up, so they will promise something and then go back on a promise. A lot of like lower orgs do that because they just think, oh well, it'll work itself out, and then it doesn't, and then the org collapses or disappears. There's obviously been a few recently that's happened to, and stuff's like gone to some fucked up for them, and then they've had to move on. But it's just like, yeah, it's just understanding if you have the facilities to pull off what you want to do.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think at the same time, it's key to say though, like, there's a difference between players going too far to the organisation standpoint, because if you think about, okay, let's do a 6-month contract and we won't get paid at the start, but when the organisation does well, because you guys are doing well, we'll start changing the salaries. That never works. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a case of, are you better off being by yourself or with an organisation? Because often, if the contract's too bad, you're better off just being, no org. Simple as.
I mean, there's a few teams that have done well as like under themselves. I mean, obviously, Fraser's lot had not a great end, but they played under Drip Mem for a bit, and then they represent Drip Brand because there wasn't really an org that were giving them what they wanted, so they didn't jump to any. I think he had a few that offered them some stuff, but it wasn't anything that's like gonna change how they play anyway, so it's not really worth it for some teams. And some teams see that as well. Like there's not orgs that offer them stuff that they couldn't just do it. They were representing themselves.
I think it's changed a little bit because I think a lot of the lower level tier 3 events, EPL, United 21, they only really invite teams that have orgs unless they're like really known names. So I think that's changed a little bit. But I do agree with you on the fact that, again, there needs to be that mutual understanding, and I think that plays a lot into contract terms. I think players need to understand kind of the business side of esports a bit more and how we make our money, and at what point it becomes, I hate to use the word sustainable because I think it's a word that's thrown around a lot under the wrong context in this industry. But, when it is, I guess, sustainable for a brand to start paying out these salaries. So, for example, with our last team, we didn't pay them a salary off the bat. They had to meet certain requirements to get that salary, and they ended up meeting them very early on, and they got that salary. But they understood that it wouldn't be sustainable for us to pay out that salary until they got to a point where we're making that money at a reasonable rate. Obviously, we made sure.
But what was that? Yeah, but what was that tipping point then to go to salary? Because like, yeah, actually, what is that? I'd actually love to know what that exact thing was to go to that tipping point to get a salary, because yeah, it'd be interesting to discuss. But
so for us, it was we had a set amount of invite level events that they would have to get invited to. So 21s and EPLs, because that's where we start getting the eyes.
But then, did you have a separate contract which said if you get into these events, you get money for it?
So it was stipulated in the contract, once they reach this threshold of a certain number of invites in a certain amount of time, then they start getting the salary, basically.
But why?
Yeah, but again, why does that unlock money for you? Yeah, why does that unlock money for you to then give salaries?
So this is where we start getting more exposure for our brand, and this is where we're able to develop our marketing vehicle a lot more. That's basically the gist of it. So
you have, let's say you have. Okay, so you sign the team with almost no budget essentially, but if they make invites,
no, we had the budget before we signed them, but this is when it became we would not be sinking money into something that isn't going to make money back, essentially. If that makes sense.
But if you're scouting these players and you think they're the players for your organization, you need to be good enough to think, okay, these guys are the right people for my brand, so you should be paying them straight away if you have the budget for it.
I do agree with that, but at the time we were very focused on making sure that we didn't put money into a hole, I guess is the word. We didn't want to.
I get that as well. I fully get that as well. I mean, Max, feel free to jump in here. How much of a hole did we put money? How much of a hole did Endpoint put in for the first few years for some of the rosters we had?
Well, obviously I was in Endpoint before you joined Endpoint, right? So it was off. We had almost no expectation of salary. It was just offered to us a very low amount from ads. But over the years, obviously, it ramped up a bit. But compared to the previous couple of years, it's been obviously a lot more, right? Because it's obviously a different context with bigger accomplishments you're trying to achieve, right? So it's I was curious what the targets are of sort of the grassroots scene, and because what I was thinking the entire time while we've been talking is that when I started playing, and Biscuit touched on it as well about people not getting opportunities and stuff like this, it's been a conversation for about 10 years more. People haven't been getting enough opportunity, and people haven't had any exposure to teams and stuff. I don't think that's true at all. But at the same time, I think there's actually more resources out there right now compared to any other point in CS history on how to improve and how to, some are free, some are 10, 15 pound a month, you can choose the free ones, you can choose the paid services. There's so many resources that can help you improve, albeit I try and help people when I have the chance to. I'm sure that a lot of the sort of more respected players try to do that when they get asked to, but the truth of the matter is I don't get asked at all anymore, so I don't help people recently. But in terms of the salaries and stuff like this, it's I'm trying to think of a way to say it, but is there almost an expectation of salary for players nowadays? Because I don't think there was before, and I think a lot of teams, you have to build a connection with an organization, and unfortunately for me, it was at Endpoint, where we kind of built each other up to a degree, where we didn't expect massive salaries or even any salary at the start, I don't think. But by getting the results, by going to LANs, by competing, by improving, they all built themselves up, and then we built our reputation up as a team. So it kind of went both ways, and there wasn't any of this shenanigans of UKCS. What eventually at some points there were, but that's kind of my recollection of the previous years of Endpoint, really.
I think Endpoint's always paid a salary, even Adam started I joined. I think even then it was a salary as well. But
I think at the start it was a very small one.
Yeah,
but obviously,
it's still small. It's still small. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, fully agree. It's small. I think, but that's. I fully agree with your point about there's more resources than ever out there. When I was playing CS back in the day, it was you could barely even get on Twitch or anything like that. It was nothing like that to watch.
Yeah, there was no. I didn't know how to watch a demo when I first started playing. But now you have you have Refrag. You've got Steeko makes YouTube resources that anyone can watch, and they're actually really, really good. You've got Nart, who does YouTube videos where it doesn't really teach you stuff, but you get to see how professionals play. Refrag have a new tool where I think like a Liege and Pimp and stuff like explain things on like a academy level sort of video series, and there's so many resources, and I think a lot of UK. I know I had this conversation with Alan Hender before, with the BCSA and like with Mezzi and Ash and all these people. Like everyone's happy to help out, you know. And it's like if you get asked a question, I'm sure that people. I've had a couple of people message me on the Steam, and I help them out where I can. But if you don't ask, you don't get at some point.
I was
right?
just going to touch on that actually, because you mentioned it before and then you came back to it. But genuinely, I think the UK has a very strong fraternity regarding this, and as long as you ask, like most people will be more than happy if they have time to come and do that. They're genuinely like kind of happy that people ask them in the first place, you know, if they've have time. So I think if anybody's listening, then like it's sort of like an open invitation. Like if you feel like, oh, I could learn something from this guy or that person, I'll ask them. Do it.
It was one of the things I was going to touch on after we mentioned, you know, more experienced players dropping down to sort of like helping out inter teams. The caveat is that those lower level players could just as easily ask people for advice, and it's one of the things which we don't see as often. And one of the perfect examples I think of it is MMS. I remember when I was playing, MMS was just this young, inexperienced kid, but every time I'd see him in TeamSpeak, speaking to Ping constantly talking to Ping and other people, and he's gone all the way to the point where you get into an RMR, and it's due to stuff like that, talking to other players, getting experience, and reaching out to more experienced players.
I've reached out to plenty of players over the years, and I don't think I've been turned down once. Like when I was competing before I, you know, packed it in, like I was thinking about becoming an IGL, and I think 5 different people like all donated like up to, I mean, Kieran, you were one of them, like donated up to like an hour just to talk to me about like setting up an entire system. Like you just have to reach out and ask for it.
It's the same with casting as well. Like it's not just necessarily a player thing. Like Yumi helped me loads when I reached out to him when I started, and like I like people have reached out to me to like watch demos of them, and I've been like, okay, of course. Like I watched demos of you, Tim, and Index once when you asked me, and someone else as well. But it's like the same thing. It's like it's not just players. Like I think it's the same thing with everything in the UK scene. Like I know Ethan, I assume you probably asked for help about running an org. It's like it's the same 100%. Thing. Like I think that same concept goes for just like everything.
Agree. Yeah, it actually blows my mind that no one asks Max for help anymore. Like I always see these like top UK. I actually always see these top UK lists of all these top players and everything, and it blows my mind that none of the endpoint players are ever on it, because people see the star players and not the, you know, the IGLs or the sport players. Because look at how, you know, if you look over the last 7 years, Max, Kaya, all these people have been at the top of the scene, just get completely disregarded. It's actually so weird. But ask them, they're nice people. Like
I'm getting allegations of not reading DMs, so I apologize.
Oh no.
But yeah, that's a fair point. What was your Barry? What was your back on that point about prize money? What's your thoughts on that?
In terms of the percentages between the org and the players, I mean, I've quite a bad issue of it, because when we was NX trying to join Vex, they tried giving us 10%. So I'm not quite sure that happened. That was without salary. Of course, I don't want it that extreme, but I don't think it has to be 80%, 85%. I'm willing to work with them, especially in Ethan's case where he said, look, if you give us more prize money, we can salary you a base amount that's higher than you would if we get a less percent anyway. So I think if there's an understanding of it, and yeah, I'm fine with that.
It's all money at the end of the day. So it's like the team and the organization have to make a decision like based on what they think might be better for them. Like it's as simple as that, really. I mean, if they feel like they prefer the security, then they can give that up. Or if they back themselves and they think actually we could be very successful, and we could win some of these United 21s, or there have been UK rosters that could threaten to do this that aren't under an org, for example, AXO. They might not be willing to give up, you know, 80% of 10,000 if they got a good run and won a United 21 or an EPL for what, 1 month of salary or 2 months at that, you know, it could be that quick a turnaround. So I think. But with that being said, of course, I think players, and I agree with the sentiment that like players do genuinely need to have a more consideration regarding the prize money going to the organization. So this is something that we do regularly with, for example, there is a contract and it says this is how much they get, but this will, handshake agreements happen, reasonable people talk, and things happen. So that's generally how we do business. If you're being reasonable and being fair and cooperating and trying to build with the organization.
I think actually handshake agreements are like, if I did a handshake agreement with someone, I'd like to think that I'd very much actually go with it. But I would very much agree, if you're starting a relationship with someone, just get it all out on paper first.
Oh
just
yeah,
get it all there, and then once it's in paper, don't ask for anything more later. Don't they shouldn't ask for anything less later, and it should just be everyone's on the same page because they know what you're all achieving together. That's the point of a contract. You're basically putting out your goals in that contract, essentially.
Yeah, no, that's all reasonable. I agree, but I also think that the contract is there if to some degree if things go off the rails. In my opinion, that's sort of like the idea of a contract. It's to sort of guard against these sort of pitfalls, right? But if the relationship is healthy, then really the contract is just a piece of paper at the end of the day. Like we can agree on things and we can move past things and work together. It's not that hard. It's not that deep.
I mean, I do think a contract should be a bit of a guard, but I also think it should be a framework for your business relationship. Because at the end of the day, the relationship between a player and an organization is business first, right? I agree with Pete's point of everything that both parties want should be outlined and agreed in that contract. And that way, the expectations are set in stone and there's no going back or asking for more or asking for less.
But again, it has to work for both parties. Again, otherwise it's not worth it. Because to your point, Biscuit, about they could have a good run in United 21 if they back themselves, and at that point, there's no point in having an organisation.
I would agree.
So which is fair. An organisation is not for everyone, for sure. But then if you take for example, Beve's situation, let's say you can't get an org Beve and the team falls apart, or there's just no one out there, but there would be someone out there for you to play enough full time if you gave away most of your salary, your prize money, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Then even if you look at this isn't going to sound harsh or anything, but if you look at your prize money for your career, if Liquipedia is correct, $4,000, whereas if you were to bet £500 a month for a year, that's $6,000. You're actually banking yourself. You're banking yourself to that $6,000 makes you can play for a whole year and try and get to that next stage in your career, and you shouldn't care about the prize money.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm more than willing to definitely meet more towards the middle on prize money. I don't think it should be crazy 20% to the players or anything. But I definitely don't think it needs to be hard set in the players' favor, especially if they're, like you said, a lot of UK teams now or recently are getting, like you said, Epic LAN all paid for. They're getting, even if it's just a small salary, they're getting that. They're paying for all their ESEA fees, which add up. Then some tournament invites request a sign-up fee. Yeah. So I think it's more than a fair request from an org.
So, but then obviously, once you start getting into that stage where you're getting into the top, 50 or something in Europe, I think you're now getting invited to close qualifiers and majors or whatever it is, and then obviously there's other revenue streams you can unlock, especially with the sticker money if you can get there and so on. So there's a stage where that doesn't have to always be. It's just if you want to try and support down to tier 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. That's where there needs to be some kind of difference, I think. But
no, that's definitely fair enough. I don't think any team in the UK has that currently, though.
Has what?
The prize money distribution like that.
Probably not.
I don't think an org's ever suggested it either to.
Yeah, no, they definitely have.
But Bevy, then you've also got how many teams are getting salaries too. So
yeah, right now too. But if we look at 6-7 months ago, we're almost 6.
And then
I didn't hear from any of they're not now. Exactly.
They're gone. So that's the problem, isn't it? Yeah.
But I know it's definitely something that should be looked at in the future for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if K10 or Coalesce that are now looking to come back in definitely want to take a similar approach to what you just said.
But I want to reiterate, they have to pay a salary for that.
Oh yeah, no. If you're taking more prize money, you have to pay the salary. Obviously,
you have to give some kind of level of support for the players where they can go. I can actually commit to this, so we can actually improve. Because if it's just a case of okay, we're still playing part time because we've got our jobs on the side, then it's a pointless transaction anyway. In some ways, so I don't know if anyone agrees here that if you don't play full time, that you won't make it to the top. Like,
yeah, I don't think you can make it to the top on.
Yeah, no.
I don't necessarily agree. I think there's some.
I don't agree with that.
I think there's some examples actually at the top level of pro players playing in the top events across the entire year
Metasport.
and whilst doing degrees. Carrigan, for example, it comes to mind. Like there are people that are able to do it. It just requires tremendous sacrifice, or a comfortable life, like someone said before.
Wasn't Mezzi doing a business degree whilst he was still
Yeah, he was doing uni.
Yeah,
I mean,
there are numerous examples.
That's a different scenario. Uni.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm talking a full-time job of like a 9 to 5, 6, whatever. Then trying to play a few hours afterwards. I'm not talking university where you can play you can do a few hours of what I did. Fuck all work in 2.5 out of my 3 years of university. Like you can.
Yeah, that was my understanding as well when the question was asked. If it's if you're working a 9 to 5 and then you have to come back and practice 6 to 8, I don't think
that's
it's
impossible.
I don't think that's very feasible at all.
Like, I know a lot of people in the UK do that, and like most recent example I was speaking to, like, I think it was Rezd about it from Reason, and it's like I could not imagine working like a manual labor full-time job and then coming to play Counter-Strike. Like, I think that caps you at a certain point.
And in terms of like you're on a timer with that as well. Like you can't keep that up.
I think it depends on the players' mindsets. No, like
potentially
it depends on the people.
For sure, yeah, for sure.
Like my team will do that. Like everyone on my team works. Like we're obviously not full time. As Biscu knows, he didn't like scheduling with us. But our lot don't play full time. We try our best to play in as much as we can. And like when we have free time, everyone's playing. Like everyone made the sacrifice to choose to play CS. That's why we're playing.
What's your like schedule look like at the moment, roughly?
Our schedule is like they work 9 to 5, and then we get on at 5:30, so in like 30 minutes, and then we'll play till 9, and then some people stay on longer to review, and then they'll go and do their own thing.
Is that like 5 days a week?
We have like Wednesday and Friday off because people work night shifts.
Okay.
And then we have weekends open to play qualifiers, and the rest of the week we're playing in the evenings. So it's obviously not as much as a full-time team, but we play as much as we can because people want to. So I think saying that it's impossible, I'd hope not, because I still want to try and go pro. But like, I think it depends on I think it depends on the people.
I do have an opinion on that actually. I think it's certainly possible for some players on the team to be sort of spinning plates, shall we say, with what but I think there's a critical mass level, like a critical number there, that like if you get too many people doing this, then it becomes very hard to play all the games, then review, practice, and do all of these things like well and consistently in that time frame, because there's too many people spinning plates. There often, I think there has to be a blend. If you have a team like this, you can't have 5 people spin plates. That team's not, in my opinion, going to be successful in the long term, unfortunately. Yeah. I think you need, I think 2 is the maximum, and honestly, 1 is bad. But yeah, I think 2 is like the level. But that's just from my own experiences and from what I've observed as well. Obviously, I'm only one person.
I think the other issue though is to Reese, your schedule you're saying about, if you want to practice the better teams, they all practice during the day. So, and I think, are you saying basically about 2 players? I always think that all 5 players on a team should have the same kind of.
Oh, they absolutely should. I mean, in an ideal scenario, but we're talking about like.
I know. Yeah, I know. This comes down to the age. This comes down to the age thing as well, though. Like, if you get to a certain age, is it too hard? But
well, obviously, we're talking about great filters that are filtering people out. But this is the reality in competition across anything that's competition. There becomes a level where you're either going to do it either by sacrifice and determination, or you're not able to do this. And then you have to stop and do something else. This is the reality for any form of competition when you go up the levels, and we shouldn't be trying to plan and survive all of these downfalls. Like, their reality of competition. Yes, we should try to mitigate this and help people get there and build the pyramid, like in the English football pyramid. This is an admirable goal, and we can talk about that. But we do also have to realize that that there are filters. There are many filters. You know, and to get to the very top, you know, that's very hard.
Yeah. I think mitigation's like the ultimate goal of all of this, right? Like all of us here just want to see more UK talent ascending further up the chain than we have now, right?
Yeah.
No, not here.
No,
I want to see it burn.
Freddie, ultimate hater.
Yeah, I'm actually in a 5-year long con.
Yeah.
But I think I just wanted to pick up on something that reset of like we're playing because we want it, like because we love the game and stuff. And like in my perspective, that only takes it so far. Like it's great for a limited time, but I think playing because of your passion like doesn't carry on forever. And I think that's the issue of like you need to have at some stage like money be coming in and like sustainability, if that makes sense.
So some of the stuff to kind of pick up on, like those points is that I think someone mentioned earlier in the call when I was able to jump on is like the cost of living in UK is sort of slightly higher than some other countries, which has an impact.
Yeah.
And the other sort of research I've done when I've looked at like other countries around the world and how esports is developing in those countries is that they've got sort of more time in some of the gap years, and then some of the sort of Nordic countries, which are able to put in time as these like extracurricular activity, as in esports. Whereas in UK, as you said, it's kind of that optional extra, which you need to, well, sort of give up your social life as such to kind of do it. And then in doing so, it gets to a point that if you don't make it pro, you at what point do you sort of say, well, I've just had to give up a year of my life to push for this, or sacrifice sort of a job or sacrifice something else to sort of promote. So I think in some regards the the UK economy and structure probably doesn't sort of lean to the esports player, whereas some of the other countries do, and that's probably why we see some of the other countries sort of having more teams and more talent coming through, whereas the UK probably we didn't see that much coming through.
Yeah, agree. I think I think even in the Nordics, like Denmark and stuff, you get paid to go to school. So it's the opposite way around.
Yeah.
I mean,
so you can play full time while you're in school.
And Denmark have a massive push into esports as well. Like aren't they like a majority shareholder of Blast? Like something ridiculous. Like they've got
used to be. I think that used to be a thing, but I think there's a conflict of interest somewhere in there. No,
probably, yeah. I mean, because they didn't they pump a load of money into Astralis as well. Like
they did, and then the issue was like with Astralis and Blast, there's like a connection, I think, but I could be very wrong. But I do remember there was a conflict of interest and something broke away.
Did they both come out of Refresh?
Oh, mate, I don't know that much.
I can't remember.
Yeah, it was Refresh had both of them, and then they split. That was
but like,
thing.
Yeah, I remember like Fuzu showed me his like uni team, and like all of them are pro players now. Oh no, not uni team, like school team. And like every single one of them's a pro player now, and it's like you just wouldn't get like it was like they were like 17, 16 playing Counter-Strike for their school, and they're all pro players now. And I remember when I was at school, I tried to set up like an esports like thing, like teachers asked me to try, and when I got onto like the British Esports Association, you couldn't have Counter-Strike because they like you had to be 18 basically to play it. So there was like Fortnite, Rocket League, all that shit, and there's like colleges in London that are actually supporting this, but you can't have Counter-Strike because there's an age restriction on it from the British esports perspective.
Yeah. Right, with my UKIC hat on, you've got John with from Esports Wales here as well. He does events, right? So players, and org owners, what would you like to see from grassroots events to actually push that mid tier in the UK?
I honestly don't know what else could be done, like within reason, like without again just being incredibly unsustainable and sinking money into a hole. Like, to be honest, I don't know how you could expand UKIC to make it quote unquote better. Like, even the whole stipend thing, it's great on paper, but how are you going to get the money to do it? I think one of the root issues with a lot of the problems within UKCS is just investment from the top level. So without that, you can't really change a lot of things.
I have one idea that I think this could correlate to UP. So like I work a lot with some of the bigger leagues and tournaments, and like they like to do content. Like I don't know if anybody remembers the Repub League content that like used to do, and like it was legit fun, good content that curated brands around players. Like Thunderpick have got me doing like this like interview series, and like I think those small little blocks, like have you ever thought about doing content around UKIC, and like if players and organizations play in it, then they have to do the content and so like that, and like it creates a brand for not only UKIC but for players and for whoever's doing the content with them. Like, do you think that's ever something that you've thought about doing?
We did that for the LAN event and stuff, I think, and I can't remember if we actually got people to sign contracts, but as in I think obviously a lot of TOs do that kind of contract participation agreements where they have to do a certain amount of content within it. Great, which again, if you've got a sponsor lined up for the event and you're paying all this prize money out and you're paying like the accommodation and travel to get people there, and the sponsor's paying for it, you want to be able to use the players or the other orgs to be able to promote the sponsor of the league, 100%. Without that, then it's a case of, does the staff's time you put into all this to get 200 views make sense? And it's like it's kind of a middle ground.
I'm more thinking of just like online, like it's like an 8-week league, and I think when you do have those leagues, sometimes people forget about it, and it just kind of all like, and unless you're actively following with it, I think it's sometimes quite hard to keep up. But like for instance, I'd love to, like if you want people helping with content with like UKIC and like the league, like fucking Golku just said he loved to do that. Like I wouldn't mind helping out with content and like doing something. And I think sure it's only going to be 200 at the start, but I think like
I fully agree.
Like everything grows together.
I would love that, and I think what we'd need for that. I hate the whole volunteer thing in esports. I hate it with a passion. Like
UKCS go.
I genuinely hate it. But at the same time, for grassroots communities, I feel like it probably is almost the only way to actually grow something sustainably. So yeah, I mean, if people want to get involved with the UKC, help out with content, the one biggest issue is editing time. Editing just is impossible. It costs a fortune, and it is it worth it? So getting content and working with, like, would happily work with UKCSGO to do content on a mutual level, help you guys grow, help us grow, whatever.
Yeah, I think like if
or organizations as well. Organizations as well. They want to do mutual content. Happy, yeah, of course we do. We want to shout about all the orgs in the UK. That's the whole point, and the players. That's why we're doing the whole like MVP thing this season. Make sure we shout about the up and coming players that are coming through. So Finn's getting some great stats for all the best players in the league. Of each division. It's really good. But and that's we did get a sponsorship this season. It was just a 1-season thing with Samsung SSD, and it was a case of like, let's shout about the top players. They get a prize, but that's part of the sponsorship, and we pitched them an MVP thing because you got to shout about the up and coming players. But yeah, we're happy to do more content. It's just a case of how that looks and what that what it's trying to achieve as a bigger picture. But
even stuff like, I think when you do, like, you've obviously got your like official broadcasts for the league, just throwing in like winners and losers interviews at the end. Like if it's
fucking
if
hate
it's
those. I fucking hate those. My god, no one likes that. It's so
but it's at least a little bit of player personality show it through for like low effort. Like I agree that there's better ways to go about it, but it's at least like, rather than just watching an online game where you're just seeing in-game avatars, it's at least like at the end of the game you can see the face of the person who's won, and
and also for the org, they might have their jersey on and they can show their sponsors and they can say, look, we actually got you on broadcast. But even with organizations, if they've got a sponsor they want to activate within the league, would happily get them involved with that and get their sponsor on the league as well. Like, why not? And it's they get the most money from it, we'll take a small commission or something, I don't know, to make that happen. Like, happy to link up with these kind of things. But
I agree that I don't like you just put in the chat like no one enjoys doing it. I agree. Like I didn't enjoy doing them back when I can't remember when I did. I think I was doing them in. It's one of the online leagues. Like it's not fantastic, but
it's not fun. But it also helps the players start learning that professional side of it, that they have to do them. You look at Blast; they're doing interviews mid-series, and I don't know, or with all these players, they're going to have to do it in the future if they actually get there. So you need to start being camera ready. You need to start being camera ready. That's the whole point of grassroots, is having camera ready for later. Like, you might hate doing it, but it just gives you that kind of media experience. It's not, for the players.
I think a bit like, media experience and awareness is something that I think probably a lot of people could benefit from learning earlier on. Like,
a lot of players are mine and Kieran's level, and Reese as well, just suck at media.
Yeah, and
they don't. Yeah, it's pretty messy.
Just fake it till you make it, boys.
Exactly.
It is the way. Like I'm not a particular fan of it myself. Like I don't do nearly enough of it, but the benefit of it is monumental. And also, even if you're not going to actively put stuff out there, just think about what you're tweeting before you put it out. Because Christ, some of the tweets I've seen like out of UK players, and then like a few weeks later they'll be like, "Oh, I'm looking for an org," and I'm like, "Are you gonna?" You know, they're going to scroll down your Twitter feed, and 2 weeks ago you were just like calling someone, you know, some
we
serious.
We actually had that with UKCS Go when we did applications, and like a few people applied, and we just went on their Twitter and we're like, oh, they're a bit racist. Let's not hire them.
When I started UKCS GG back when, like I turned somebody down for that exact same reason. Like you can't have that associated with your, like, you don't want that associated with your brand. Like this player plays for my team with my sponsors. Also, they've been, you know, racist on Twitter, or they've said something outrageous, and it's just like it's a massive risk. And I don't think like if you are a player, you're not doing yourself any favors by tweeting it.
So if you look at how few little opportunities there are for a player to go from tier 2 in UKCS to tier 1, or let's say Endpoint loses a player and we go look to pick a player up as an example, right? So an actual salary position that could go to a UK player if they were good enough. Max, how many times over the years have we gone, right, like there's some OK players here. There's obviously, you've got the whole European talent pool as well. Potentially, we only need to be a majority at the end of the day, really, if it's all. Would you say, okay, we've looked at some of the top up and coming players, and you go, no, I'm good from other reasons other than the game, or I've heard bad things in the scene about them, or like I've got a mental list in my head, to be honest with you, of players that we probably will never pick up because of things stuff we've seen.
Like, I mean, it's definitely true, the public perception of players, for sure. I won't disagree with that one. But for most of the time, it just comes down to, like, a majority, at least in my decision making, is the skill of the player. But obviously other factors such as, you know, ridiculous tweets don't help their cause by any mean. But I
think if you look at Azuri for an example, like we could probably have got a player. We took a risk on Azura, I'd say, and we could have actually got a player in Europe that was maybe better or at the same level, but we'd heard nothing bad about Azura over his whole career. He had a good kind of like reputation in the scene. The same goes for Mezzi as well. We could have picked up another player, but Mezzi had a great reputation in the scene as well, and we picked him up because of that. Like, that is genuinely the reason.
Yeah. I mean, that's where it goes back to the point about not getting chances, right? Like, I think that's not true. That's categorically not true. But at the same time, like we obviously Mezzi's a different.
He was with Cloud9 before, I get that.
You know, but before he joined C9,
we tried to pick him up lots of times.
Yeah, we definitely looked at Mezzi because like word goes around how people are, how they are as a teammate, how they're like as a person, you know. And if they're easy to get along with, easy to play with, and they're skilled, then it's going to be a no-brainer for a lot of teams. But obviously, that being said, it's, you know, I would say it's difficult for an entirely UK team to make it to the highest echelons of the game, because the reality is there's not that many national teams now. You know, if you look at it across the board, a lot of teams are mixing with nationalities. So you have to compete with other talent pools, with Europe, with, you know, Israel. Like, you have to, apparently they're churning out some talented players again. So it's like, it's not easy as a UK player, but individually, I think it's possible to make it out of the scene in that way. But whether that's what people want to hear or not, I don't know. But as a team, it's a lot harder. I think as an individual, it's never been, maybe it's never been easier, I would say.
I would say for the Israel point, though, yes, they haven't got any top teams, but I wouldn't be surprised if in a year or so, or 2 years or whatever, you'll have a super team that kind of comes from Israel, and that's how you start it. The players might have to leave first to then come back later. Like, and I think you see the same in the UK. We've nearly had super teams a few times with, like,
you see,
I mean, ITB, we made the major, was basically a super team in the UK that kind of came back together at a good time. And I think you could have the same for right now with, you know, Smooth could join with Thomas, and maybe somebody else would come along as well and help that. But I don't know, and a few others, but I don't know.
Sorry to pull you back to the point, but I was just wondering from the sort of, I guess, the grassroots tournament side, like, what would you guys, if you're starting out, what would be the benefit for you guys to get into the scene? Because other than So I like my background. I used to play 1.6 back like 20 years ago, and it used to be like plan based and enemy down and stuff like that. And like I know there's like ESEA and there's a few other sort of tournaments you got like Epic Land and things like that to get involved with. But like if you get into the scene now from you guys, what would you want to have that pathway?
I don't think there's a lot that you could ask for. I think that there's like very few things that would go a long way. I think progression is one of them. So this being a way that you can progress your brand or your team or your mix of players. So that being like HLTV points, right? And I never know exactly what the way you get that is, because is a way that HLTV submit tournaments onto their site.
HLTV is key, and you have to have a good enough teams in the division. So, for example, like let's say you've got teams that have already got points, and then I think some prize money matters as well, but not hugely. It's more about the level of teams that are in the competition for HLTV.
Yeah, I think that's the bottom line. I think as long as you have that to a degree, like it depends how grassroots you're going, because I think like in the UK scene before, there was, there's obviously a lot of land. There used to be Insomnia, there was Epic Land, there was ESL UK that would run ESL Prem, right? So like there was a lot of different flavors of stuff. But like I think as a tournament, I think you want to try and have like a LAN final, but it can be online. But if it is a LAN final, then making sure that it's an acceptable setup, stuff like this, because that's kind of the major pitfall that I think a lot of players have when they go to LANs, especially with ESL Prem when that was around, was that you'd expect a decent standard and you'd get subpar standard all the time. But I think that's probably the minimum requirements. And then not from a tournament point of view, maybe you want to do content, maybe you want to publish content and create media stuff around it, which I think is also, as a player, you can't say no to that, I don't think. But that's my thoughts on it.
I think just picking up that last point, I think what would be very valuable is organizations and tournaments aiding in content with players. I think that is something that I'd like to see more. Because TLR used to do it. They don't do it anymore, I don't think so.
What don't we do?
Not you as like I remember like TLR used to do content around players, and like I haven't seen anything. I don't think so. From the organization.
There's plans to do more. Well, I asked to do more content with Chef, and we've been talking about it. So, but I think there should be more content. But also, I think coming back to your point about what would get me into the scene now, I think I started playing just before COVID, so I kind of missed all of like the LAN events that Matt was on about. I never really could play them all. They were around. But I think right now there's more stuff to play in than ever if you're actually wanting to get involved in CS. And personally, I probably wouldn't play. It's a bit like mixing nationalities, but I don't think I would probably get into a UK team now. I'd probably go EU to look at team opportunities, because that is the best way as an individual, right? So if you don't have friends or know people, that is your route. But yeah, I think right now the UK event-wise is in a better spot than it has been in a very long time, and that's partly because of UKIC being quite open-minded with what teams they actually let in. Like, you can be any level of team and play in some form of division. I don't think there's ever really been anything though like that.
I don't think sorry to interrupt. I don't think like the nationality thing has any sort of merit in like the thing about like what team is better or this. I think no,
obviously not.
When you're picking players, it's all about like what's their situation, like how many hours can they play, and how do they want to play, and all this sort of stuff, like beyond their experience and what they bring in the server. That's all important. So just to go back to like the idea about spinning plates and that critical level, like you can build a roster with anyone from anywhere, right? It could be UK, it could be EU, but that's the actual important factor. Like how many people in the team are able to do it full time, like potentially on nothing, just on the hope that the team will do well, in the belief that we can build it. But that's the way you do it. I mean, I've yet to see it happen in my lifetime. Like in this sort of area, like that happen where there's 5 players that are or more than 2 players where they're spinning plates and they're doing multiple things, because they have to or what have you, and are then successful. But just to like, just so that people don't think they need to like escape the UK scene to play. who are listening, I just want to disabuse people of that notion. You can build a team with 5 UK players. It's all about time and how many people can put into the effort, and sacrifice.
Yeah,
I
would
worded
definitely
that
agree with
wrong.
that.
But yeah, I agree.
I've just seen this from, excuse me, from Fact in the chat, who's, I think, just throwing an idea out here, which I actually kind of like. Is it realistic for UKIC to enforce teams to stream all the group stage games, for example, which would allow them to then track the stats from both the individual streams, the UKIC streams, and then sort of merge statistics for sponsor deck stuff, which on the face of it to me seems like quite a good idea. I'd be curious to see sort of what the players think, and then obviously, like, Pete, what your thoughts on that would be. Don't all speak at once.
Yeah.
Wait, so
So you want the players to stream or the team itself?
Like streaming. Essentially,
Probably orgs
streaming
stream, I
pods
guess,
or orgs. Yeah, because I guess the issue with
TLR stream every single game we had in UKIC. I think the only one they didn't do is because it was rather against Beve's lot or someone else. Their org was streaming it, so they just hosted the org that was streaming it.
I think it's an additional cost for the orgs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
to get the costs in. So
it does, yeah.
I'm not sure if there would be a way to help alleviate those costs a bit. But
you say that though, but like that is a key cost for me in terms of like growing your brand. Like
I 100% agree.
Endpoint, yeah, we've paid casters over the years, not huge amounts, but the amount of like casters I would say that have now gone to tier 1. We're just another talent pipeline for casters. It's the same concept as players, but we grew our Twitch channel to what, we've got 30,000 followers on there now. Mm-hmm. Actually, a channel which we actually a channel which we could probably, if we're pitching to sponsor, I feel more comfortable saying we've got that channel, like because we built it up over the years slowly over just matches. But so I think it's key, but you have to start somewhere, because if you end up doing well and you get somewhere big and you haven't started yet, it's the same as streaming in general. You need to grow up from nothing to whatever. But
yeah, I agree. But when you take into the so for myself and Biscu, for example, I think when we first formed the team this season, we just joined EXO. We were in 6 or 7 leagues at once. So that's CCT. We're in at 2 of them at once. United 21, EPL, UKC, ESCA. There was like a few random leagues that would pop up.
Would you not find like an up-and-coming caster though? Like, if you're not an org as well?
we did. We found 2 casters we really liked. Birdie and his co-caster. I completely forgot his name. I'm sorry. But yeah, like when you have that many games, and then on top of that, UKC already like for the most part they're streaming our games anyway. Like a lot of my personal games anyway. Then it's quite hard to say to the org like, maybe you guys should also stream this because it's already been covered elsewhere anyway, and they already have so many fees on casters because the amount of events we're in.
I think you know how UKCS go.
European anyway.
I think you know how UKCS go volunteers. You should just have caster volunteers that are looking to get into the scene who we give IPs to and say we'll cover this game. We'll cover, not for any money or anything, but they want on their own channels as well.
Yeah,
so they can grow the caster can grow their own brand, but then it's showing off the the brand as well. So like let's say EXO, they might have, let's say the sponsor that was paying the salaries, they could have their team name as EXO something else, and they can actually show that kind of viewership. But
yeah, I think that's definitely like the best way of doing it is finding the casters that want to enter the space. So people like Grimmy here that and Index that have kind of made their way into it, and Tim and whatnot. If they want to volunteer in that sense and grow that way, then I think it's great. But I think asking for the orgs to kind of forcefully stream it, then it could be a bit difficult.
So just to touch on what Jens was saying about like the amount of events that we were playing since say about 2 months ago, the start of the season.
It's horrible, isn't it?
Well, it's necessary though as well.
It is.
Yeah. So this is the sort of catch-22, right? Which games do the orgs prioritize in streaming? Because we recorded how many games we played, practices and things since the start of last season, and we played well over 250 maps of Counter-Strike, and the vast majority of them were officials. So just how many of them are the orgs supposed to stream, are able to stream, which ones do they choose, and then, okay, how much money do they do that? And then then you're asking people to volunteer time to stream these games. So yeah, the industry relies on volunteers at times. So that's a great point, and we shouldn't underestimate that. But at the same time, we should be realistic. Like the teams that do have these games, like us and EXO and other teams, for example, there's a lot. It's like at that level, it's a lot of games, and if UKIC don't have the facility to stream, their games, then maybe they should reduce the amount of match days. For example, like the amount of match days in the league is ridiculous. If you want more visibility, then perhaps reduce the amount of match days so that there's less games to actually stream and just stream them all from UKIC, or then the amount of people that volunteer will probably cover a greater percentage of the games that actually got played. Therefore, visibility has actually gone up, even though there are less match days. So these are solutions, and I've posited these to TJ and the UKIC staff. So these are things that we could do to help the UK scene and the sort of viewership rate there. But at the same rate, we do have to. It sort of goes back to that like experienced players things, giving their time up to then come down and do things. Like we also have to expect that like people who are casting, if they're going to do a good job, it's actually quite a hard thing to do. And it takes a lot of time, and that also requires a lot of attention and probably pay as well, and some sort of exchange. So that has to be considered as well. We shouldn't just expect things of people all the time as well, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, not saying stream every game. I actually think that if you're an org wanting to actually grow, though, I think that if you're looking at even salaries or media, you have to have a budget for media and salaries. You can't just put everything into salaries. Like, one of the biggest mistakes Endpoint did for ages is we put all our money into salaries, and we didn't hire a social media manager, for example, for years. And as soon as we hired a social media manager, we actually took so much time off for everyone else in the organization that we actually managed to grow a lot faster. And you need to budget properly, and that's just management 101, which a lot of orgs need as well. But there should be a budget for content creation, be it Twitch, other things. Not saying Twitch. I don't think Twitch is the platform for the future. I think maybe YouTube or TikTok or whatever it is. But something, you need to be creating content out of it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm really sorry I have to dip. But feel free to keep the conversation going. Obviously, but yeah,
I feel like we're like coming up on the 2-hour mark, so I think it's probably we're at a decent spot to wrap this one up, because otherwise we'll be going all day, and I'm kind of hungry and I want some food, to be honest. So. Yeah, no, thank you all for coming in, and Pete for obviously putting this entire thing together. For those who are watching, the VOD is going to be up. I just need to press the publish button after we're done. Thanks to... Oh, here he is. He's back. His battery's back. But thanks to everybody who's hopped in. I need to make sure I don't forget anyone here. So we've got Tim, Biscu, Reese, Mighty Max, Ethan from K10, Slayer John, Pete, Freddie, and Bev. Make sure you check out all of their socials and stuff. It's been a great chat. Obviously, we've got make sure you go and support the UK organisations that we've got: UKCS Go, UKIC, all of the actual orgs. Give them some retweets, some love on the socials. Yeah, thank you very much for tuning. And
I would just say, last point, the UKCS is doing well, and Epic Land has more attendance than ever in the Counter-Strike events. Yeah. Like every time, it's doing well. It's just that middle section where there needs to be that kind of more funding through it, which is just hard to get. But we need to work together to do that, I think. So, but yeah, UKCS is doing well on a positive note.
I think ultimately, we're not in a bad spot. I think at the moment we're just let's make sure that we keep it that way. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you around.